Hey, today we're talking about unilateral hip hinge variations. Unilateral meaning that if I'm drawing a line down the middle of your body, you are asymmetrical from side to side. These are basically some of my favorite hip development exercises that I use for my athletes. It saves people a lot of knee problems, makes their hamstrings and hips really strong. And for most people, that'll save them tons of health problems and movement issues down the road. So this first variation that we're looking at is called a dumbbell goblet good morning. It's called a good morning because the weight is situated around my shoulders and I'm not holding it low in my hands, below my hips basically. So you can see here I'm balancing on one leg, and when we look at it from the side, you're going to see my hips push back. I'm going to be maintaining a neutral spine, and I'm going to try my best to keep my hips squared up at the ground. I'm not doing a perfect job here, but I'm pretty close. And you want to make sure that you're shifting your weight back into your heel and keeping pressure towards the outside of your foot, which is going to help you keep your knee to the outside of the foot and maintain tension in the hips. A big problem a lot of people have with unilateral hip hinges is that their knee will dive down to the inside because they're trying to use their inner hamstrings to pull on the weight and create the movement that we're looking for. But really what this does is it reinforces a bad posture that can put you at risk for ACL injuries when you have to sprint and cut and things like that. It's also going to limit how much power you're able to develop if you're overdeveloping the insides of your legs. So we want to make sure that we're keeping the tension in the outside and the back of our hips and towards the outside of our leg as well. So this next variation, basically we're just putting the weight down in our hand, and it turns into a Romanian deadlift when you hold something low like that below the hips. And I'm holding it in the opposite hand of the leg that I'm working, which is going to provide a bit of an anti-rotational component throughout my spine because I have to fight to basically maintain a neutral posture. And you can see here I sort of overextend my lower back as I'm going down and up. This is a technique error, and basically you want to make sure that you don't overextend in the low back because that can cause some issues with tightness and discomfort in your lower back. So once you get good at that anti-rotational one, I like to progress people into the two-handed dumbbell single leg Romanian deadlift. And what this does basically is it allows us to load the exercise more, creating more tension in the hips and hamstrings and allowing us to develop more force down through that leg and eventually more power and speed for people who are trying to run fast or be able to stay healthy when they have to cut or decelerate, do whatever they need to do. This exercise is also really awesome for the baseball players that I work with. It helps them basically resist rotation and get their hips and the head of their femur to move really well inside of the hip socket. A lot of times they get sort of stuck in this asymmetrical rotational goop or whatever you want to call it, where they just really can't move their hips very well. And their right leg or their back leg, when they hit and throw, will always want to dive into knee valgus, and basically their glute on that side gets really weak, and then their glute on the front side of their body, or their left leg in right-handed hitters, right leg in left-handed hitters, basically gets overdeveloped, and they get this sort of rotated hip posture, and it basically causes injuries, or at the very least it limits how much power they can create when they sprint, run, and throw, and good stuff like that. So I love this exercise. It really helps them feel how their hips should be functioning, and once they get really strong at it, then it allows them to basically build capacity to add a lot of weight and improve power overall. So on this next variation, you can see the other ones were pretty similar. Now we're down on two legs and we're using one dumbbell. Basically, I like to use this for people who have troubles with a dipping shoulder as they're moving up and down on the single leg deadlift while they're holding the weight in one hand, or on a single leg RDL rather, when they're holding the weight in one hand. So basically, if you just watch here, on my left arm, my shoulder was dipping slightly down towards the ground, but if you look at my right one here, it's staying pretty level. My shoulders don't really dip down too much. So that's something you're looking for if you're recording yourself or if you're coaching somebody. Just cue them to keep that shoulder back and keep the shoulders level. If you have to help them and manipulate them to put them in the right position, then that's totally fine too. This is a pretty difficult one. When you start putting a bar on your back for a good morning position, it can become pretty difficult to maintain posture as you're moving up and down. So this one's pretty advanced. I really reserve this one only for my athletes who have mastered the previous variations and they need something new with a little bit more load and a little bit more difficulty. So those are my unilateral hip hinges. Basically, those should suffice for anybody who's looking to get stronger and more balanced in their hips. If you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe. If you disliked it, downvote and leave a comment below. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Peace.